Good morning, everyone. TrackMan 44 here. Well, we made it successfully through five parts of this series. I think in the last one, in part 5, we started making the return air fitting that goes to the bottom of the return air drop and ties into the bottom of your furnace and contains the filter. I got that about halfway done. I got the two sides made. Today we're going to finish that fitting up. We're going to make the inside and the outside wrappers, install the filter slot, and then just show you kind of what that looks like. So at any rate, it'll be a quick and simple. Don't think it's going to take very long. So enjoy. We'll go ahead and fold those wrappers on the brake. And then we're going to do something different. We're going to assemble this this piece of duct. This first little guy is the toe wrapper. Start off with your 1/2" double hem 90. And invert it, turn right over backwards, come right up. This is where your notching comes in important. You come right up to your notches. There's our 90 degrees. Now remember, this folds to the outside, so it'll go right here at this notch. That should be a 4-inch notch, which is 5 inches in from the rough edge, and give us 90 degrees. That's going to be the inside toe wrapper on that fitting. Next is the heel wrapper. Same thing. Start off with your 1/2" double hem 90. I'm going to turn this upside down now, because we have to fold that to the outside. On a personal note, if you notice on these things here, on this brake, especially whenever I'm rolling the apron back to 0, I don't just slam the brake and just let it fly back there and just bounce and bang. Boy, nothing really irritates me worse than to see somebody do that to their machine. You pull it up and you catch it. Stop it at your 90 degree. Bring it back and catch this. You don't want this big old heavy apron to keep banging down. So a lot of guys will just throw them down and slam it. Well, that's so bad on your bushings and just bad on the brake entirely. I don't like to see that. Remember how I told you I don't use that easy edger anymore? This is a classic example. Whenever this gets done, you got to find that notch. Of why I don't use that easy edger too much. Number one, because of its degree of difficulty, and number two, you can succeed in making that air run smooth enough around the bends if you do this right here. There's your outside or your heel wrapper. So normally, if I was going to make this a radius, this would be about a 12 or 14-inch radius, and I would have had to turn on the easy edger that 3/16 90 on the side piece of this duct. But this is so much quicker, so much simpler. I like to start with the toe wrapper. And it's always difficult to get started. Never fear, that is not done. Got a neat little tool here by Milwaukee. They make them pneumatic now, and of course they still make them electric. These things are probably about 500 bucks now. I've had this thing for 40 some years. Once you get her kind of lashed down halfway decent, there's 3/4 of it assembled. We still have the other side to put on. This is where it gets interesting. Once you get to that point, have to take the leading edge of this and pop that leading edge in here, the one with the flange on it. Then I like to take these little guys right here. There's also a reason for that. Those of you that change your furnace filters know how frustrating it is when a furnace filter will not slide out because the filter gets hooked on a ragged, jagged edge or whatever. That's not going to be the case here. Remember, I cut that little notch there. That's so we can fold that over. Fold those over more snugly with our hand seamers. Remember that crisp chunk of steel I told you to keep your eyeballs out far, peeled out far? You use that as an anvil. And smash those down just as slick as a newborn baby's butt. There's no sharp edges, nothing to catch on, anything of that nature. So here is basically the return air filter slot in the return air drop. So what I'll do now is put slides in here to keep the filter from being drawn into the furnace or fall back into the ductwork. Here's the fully assembled return air piece. I just had this metal in there to hold it. So here's your filter slot. You can see my hand slipping in. And this is a little filter clips that'll hold the filter in place. A standard 16 by 20 inch filter will fit perfectly flush. I like to run, you know, a little bit bigger filter if you can. You can find a 16 by 24 and it's not ridiculously expensive. I kind of like that because it gives you something to grab a hold of. But what I do a lot of times is I'll bend a little pull slide that sits right in there underneath the filter. And you just grab a hold of the hook at the end on a 16 by 20 and just pull and the filter slide right out just like that. We'll take this little handheld Whitney punch. We'll pop in a few screw holes. That's double hem 26 gauge material. That way when we flop it up against the furnace or the return plenum, already got the holes, we just zip, pop them in there, and that puppy's done. Well, this brings us to the end of part 6. We're getting a pretty good pile of duct stacked over there. I haven't been, you know, filming or recording all of it because, you know, once you see a couple of fittings laid out, you know, it kind of gets to be old. Trying to show you the newer and interesting things as they crop up. There is definitely some challenges coming up in the next couple of things we have to build, but I'm having trouble finding some parts. I'm gonna make my own interlocking dampers, and I'm having trouble finding the linkages and everything, you know, that the actuator motor has to attach to, and the bearings that actually go in the sides of the duct that the dampers are going to rotate on. I thought I had a couple left over, but I must have used the last little bit of them that I had on the last job or two that I've done. But at any rate, I got to solve that issue, so it might be a little while before I get back. I might have to make a trip to the big city and go see some old supply houses and see if some other old guys know of a dusty box sitting on a shelf somewhere. But at any rate, for now, we're almost at a stopping point. So this is Tractor Man 44, and I'm out of here for today.